A huge thanks to Michael Ponza and fellow Simon Young for hosting here at the Rosewood today. Thanks also to Aubrey for supplying the meat for the cowpies, and who we'll be hearing from very shortly. And enormous thanks to Brian Turner, who is sponsoring the wines via Berkman Wine Cellars for today's luncheon. Congratulations to our new fellows who were awarded at our AGM last month, and they are Luigi Canyon, MCA, Restaurant Manager of the Ritz Restaurant, Alessandra Fussili, MCA Managing Director, WSH Restaurants, and Simon Young, Executive Chef of Rosewood, London. Simon, would you be so kind as to actually pop up here and collect your signed certificate? And congratulations. Now, I'd like to introduce our featured associate member, Lucianne Allen, Director, and Simon Smith, Director of Client Relations at Aubrey Allen. Over to you, chaps.
Well, I thought the hardest thing you could do in public speaking was to speak at this time in the day when everyone's had a good bit of food and drink. Then I found out I'm speaking about meat and sustainability when you've all had a vegetarian pie. I thought, Christ, I must have upset someone. So I threw away my notes and I thought I'd better start with meat is destroying the planet. Leading scientists, top nutritionists, experts in agriculture all agree that that is the biggest lie of this century. What I want to do in these brief minutes is to encourage you all to do your research, read, review, and whatever decision you reach it for the right reasons. We have all been greenwashed by papers that were sponsored, that were fueled, funded by companies whose only interest is to increase profit and their vision to destroy the meat industry. What a lovely vision that is. I believe a collaborative way forward. I believe in working with people who truly care about where produce comes from, who really understand food production, not just numbers on a spreadsheet, not just saying let's create some fake meat with 22 ingredients coming from 3 different continents. Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? So for me it's 3 things, and the first one is the most important, and I do not hear it spoken about. There is an international campaign at the moment about soil. Nobody's talking enough, in my view, about soil. Please don't take my word as read on anything here. I'm sick, if you like, of information overload. What I'd like you to do is look it up yourselves. But from my research, I found 65% of grasslands in this country can only be grazed. If they are not grazed, they go to wasteland, or they try to turn them into production land by adding fertilizers, and then they create topsoil erosion, and then the floods. So I'd love to hear more conversations about soil, and I'm delighted that that is now what farmers are being measured on. That is progress. The second thing, and Chris and I touched on it before we came in here, the real sustainability argument should be around nutrition. A lot of experience and brains in this room. So if any of you can tell me genuinely if there is another product on this earth whereby consuming mere 4 to 6 ounces, you can get iron, protein, amino acids, vitamin B's, vitamin D's, by eating good, grass-fed, properly produced beef. I'd be very interested to hear. And isn't it interesting, the cynic in me says, that we are being encouraged to eat a vegan diet for the good of the planet? However, everybody, if you do go down that route, and please, if you want to, I do not have an issue with what anyone's diet is. I really don't. Freedom to me is what's more important, information and knowledge. But if you do, what does everybody agree? If you're on a vegan diet, what must you do? Well, you must take supplements.
Eat local.
Yeah, but with vegan diet, they say you must supplement. They've got a crisis in Australia amongst teenage girls following a vegan diet. And who does it benefit for people to take supplements? Pharmaceuticals. There you go, a little bit of conspiracy theory dropped in for free. The final part, and this is really where Simon comes in so much, it's on the QR codes here. And again, we've chatted, Andrew and I have been chatting, he's given me all sorts of ideas on product development, Chris as well, and also I know Tony's done a lot of work on this. It's education on what sustainability means in meat. It's educating students. It's educating the public that there's more to the beef carcass than the fillet, and there's more to the lamb than the rack. And it's being brave and bold, but not only is it the sustainable choice to choose these different cuts, it makes good sense, doesn't it? We're going to head in for a tricky 18 months. What could we achieve if we really work together? Phone up your butcher, speak to them and tell them you want to be sustainable. They will jump for joy. Trust me. And also it makes economic sense, because those lesser known cuts, generally speaking, will cost less per portion on the plate. So those 3 things: soil, nutrition, sustainability. That's what I would just simply urge you to research, and when you've made those conclusions, I think it's the duty of all of us in the food industry to really drive this forward and do 3 things. It's quite complex. You might want to get a pen for this one. Share, share, and share. Share it with your children. Share it with your children's schools. Don't get me started on schools. Share it down the pub. Gently encourage people to really look into this instead of starting with sweeping statements. It's meat at fault. It's black, it's white. It's not. Yes, we've got work to do in the meat industry, and we can only do it with the help of everybody in this room and then beyond. Thank you.
Just touching on from what Lucy said, so from a product side of things, I work with some fantastic chefs. I started my journey 36 years ago with Aubrey, and at that point, lamb chop chops, nobody wanted. Belly of pork, nobody really wanted. So it comes by fashion. What is fashion? What's needed? And there are certainly cuts out there that we work with, and I've had the pleasure of taking some of the guys, their team, to the abattoir, looking at it. I'm actually walking around and going, well, that's being exported to the Far East, and that's not for us, and that's not for us. So we need to change the mindset of the consumer. So you probably know Andreas Toner and Leo. He's now working on a dish at Simpsons in Birmingham, and he's got a fillet steak with a piece of heart, ox heart. And if we go back to the war, we didn't export things across to the other side of the world. We actually utilised them. And so now he's actually got a wonderful protein on the plate, reduced his cost by just actually thinking, what can I do? Now, he hasn't put it on the menu as ox heart, he's just put beef and beef. So when we start looking at that, it's great. So I was with Tony, we were at Westminster College 3 weeks ago now, and we did some beef skewers. That was ox heart. We did some shank of beef and some ravioli. We did some buffet. And all of these cuts, I would encourage you to look at. And you're leading the way. And if you guys can do it, it's following fashion, and you're fashion leaders. And so, please, there's a QR code on the back. It's about Aubrey Allen, it's about what we're doing. But your butcher can help as well. So please do look at those other cuts and see how you can help change fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucianne, Simon. Excuse me. Thank you. It was actually very, very interesting, and I'm sure it could start a debate off later on. I'll get through this first before we actually go on. Okay. On to awards. It's been a very busy few months for the awards calendar. Thank you to all the chairmen and judges who give up their time and expertise to make it all happen. The final round for the Annual Awards of Excellence is happening today for the Scottish Service candidates who are competing at Glen Eagles. In June, we held a London Service final at Alan Ducasse at the Dorchester for 16 candidates, of which 11 achieved the award. Candidates needed to decant a bottle of red wine and a silver serve, a 4-course menu to guests, which included filleting a Dover sole. The pastry and kitchen finals also took place last month at University of West London and University College, Birmingham. The pastry candidates had 5.5 hours to make 10 millefeuilles, 10 sweet and 10 savoury bouchées, 6 vegan verrines, and 2 sac tortes with a flower on top. 3 achieved the award this year. Kitchen had 2 finals, 9 at UWL and 7 at UCB. They had 5.5 hours, to make 4 globe artichokes and poached egg starters from a mystery basket ingredient. A salmon croûte using a Claridge's recipe, and 4 plated strawberry vegan desserts. 8 achieved the Annual Awards of Excellence. We'll be returning here to Rosewood, London on the 25th of July for the Gala Awards ceremony. Previous Annual Awards of Excellence achievers will be cooking the dishes this year with Adam Smith, MCA, Ruth Hanson, and Alistair Burt completing the lineup. And lastly but not least, if you'd really like to join us, then tickets are available from the website. And I might add, I think this is a little bit of a bargain. It's only £125 plus VAT. That's your drinks for the night, the dinner, and the company of the very best. Roll up, roll up. Okay, the Master of Culinary Arts is the pinnacle award for our industry. And I will now give you an overview of what the candidates have been doing so far this year. Restaurant Management and Service have held their quarter-finals at the Grosvenor House, where they tested their candidates on a range of tasks, including P&L analysis, menu knowledge and interviews, dealing with written letters of complaint, telephone bookings, and a general knowledge paper based on restaurant management. The semi-finals at Brown's Hotel focused on the practical service skills. The candidates carved a duck, sliced smoked salmon, made steak tartare, and carved an orange to a guest. Then blind tasted spirits, including a Ukrainian vodka, blind tasted wines, decanted a bottle of red wine, made 2 Negronis, and finally they had to identify 10 different cheeses. Pastry recently completed their semi-final, where they had 8 hours to produce in honour of our late colleague Michel Roux OBE. 4 identical plated desserts themed around raspberries to consist of a hot raspberry souffle, accompanied by a cold and frozen raspberry element to be served with an appropriate garnish, followed by 8 individual classic wine or champagne corked shake, baba or rum, and serve them plated as a fine dining dessert with an appropriately flavoured creme diplomat. I nearly said a joke that I thought it was wrong. I remember when I was a lad, though, we used to serve banquets of savrans and things like that, and they were very much the norm. They have become special now, haven't they? Yeah. That was the joke, it's okay. Finally, a 3-tier fruit macaron cake with flowers of the candidate's choice with sugar work or chocolate. So a tough gig there. We have the chef's semi-finals taking place on Wednesday at our educational sponsors venue, University of West London. They will be cooking 2 whole farmed rabbits. Garnishes must include globe artichoke, starch-based and candidate's choice on a silver flat. A mousseline de homard in honour of the late great Albert Roux, and finally a Saint Honoré tart, salted caramel vanilla, tonka bean ice cream. I like to wish all of the competitors the best of luck. I shouldn't say this, but I will, especially Spencer Metzger. A huge thanks, as ever, to our educational sponsor, University of West London, as well as our additional sponsors, Aubrey Allen, Berkman Wine Cellars, Champagne Laurent Perrier, Café Musetti, Ritter Corriveau, and Winterholt. Now, please may I ask Helena and James from the Doctor School to say a few words, please. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It's going to be Ashley in a minute, not James.
No.
Just a very quick update to report that this academic year has been a really positive one for Doctor School, with well over 10,000 children reached since September, which, although down on pre-pandemic numbers, given the difficulties of school closures, staff shortages and illnesses, we think is a really positive result. We've delivered 27 Chef on the Farm sessions, 20 sessions at hospital schools, and we've also delivered food education sessions to children at youth clubs during the school holidays who would normally be benefiting from free school meals in the term time. That's in addition to our usual school programme. Adopt a School volunteers have delivered 45 sessions so far this academic year, and we have held 5 training sessions since last September to 90 trainees, including exclusive training sessions for Baxter Story, Harrison Catering, and also lecturers and teachers in Jersey. Our next Adopt a School training session is on Wednesday the 14th of September at Westminster Kingsway College, if you know anyone who'd like to come along. In Adopt a School team news, since the last plenary, we've welcomed Alice McKinnon, our London-based chef lecturer, thanks to funding from the Savoy Educational Trust, to enable us to adopt schools from our ever-growing waiting list. Alice joins John McManus, over there, as our second new Adopt a School regional chef in 2022. John McManus, our Sussex-based chef, joined in January, thanks to Table Talk Foundation, and has gone off to a roaring start. Together with Table Talk Foundation, we have raised £175,000 for a teaching kitchen at Plumpton Agricultural College to be able to deliver farm-to-fork sessions to children in the Sussex region. Since our last plenary, we've also held 2 successful fundraising dinners. The first, Take 3 Colleges, was held at the Royal Automobile Club on 19th of May, with thanks to Matthew Marshall and Ben Geelan. And our second, Take 6 Colleges, was last Friday at Anfield Stadium in Liverpool. A huge amount of goodwill and generosity was put into both events by our amazing lineup of academicians, associate members and suppliers, as well as our partner colleges and their students, and we are hugely grateful for this support. Thank you also to Andrew Garrett and Mark Flanagan, who recently raised a combined total of £4,397, taking part in the London Marathon and Ride London for Adopt a School. Andy Aston and colleagues from Baxter Story are running the Big Half Marathon in October, and we also have a runner from the Evolve Hospitality team taking part in the London Marathon for Adopt a School. Again, we are so grateful. We have places on the Royal Parks and the Big Half Marathon if anyone would like to take on a challenge for Adopt a School. I'm now going to hand over to our London Adopt a School chef, Ashley Marsh, who is sponsored by the University of West London and will now give a bit of an insight into what a day of an Adopt a School chef lecture involves.
Thank you. Helena. My name's Ashley Marsh. I'm sponsored by the University of West London to do the Adopt a School on a Thursday and a Friday. And I just want to really say how diverse training is. I do my primary schools and I do my secondary schools, but I also go into Helena Children's Hospital. I design recipes for them on the dialysis ward, which I'm the only person from outside who's allowed to go in there and do it at their beds. This is giving the parents a little bit of time off, and it also gives them a little bit of insight of when they go home, what they can eat, what they can't eat. Well, unfortunately, we're not allowed onto the other wards, so I've been doing some filming. They've got all the filming cameras and they've got a YouTube channel that they've set up so that the kids can watch me at their beds eventually when they get the TV set up. We also go into farm schools. I go through into a SEND school, a farm school as well. These children all have learning difficulties, predominantly mental health. I walked into the facility that I have, which was fantastic. And as soon as I went in there, I realised that we had to get the parents in. Because it's okay doing it with the kids, and they go home and say, well, we had a great time. But to get the parents in, which we have just started doing, I've just finished doing it, wow, fantastic. For them to see how infused the kids are and how infused the parents are with them as well. Hopefully the seed will be sowed and they'll take that home with them. What else do we do? I've just finished doing a thing called Kick and Cook with Millwall Football Club. Yes, I did have to go in there and tell them I wasn't a West Ham fan. That was the first thing I said. But that's been fantastic. So what we did, we worked with Millwall Football Club while I was teaching one of the classes. The other class was doing some exercise and vice versa. And it's not ending there. We're doing a holiday club with them as well. We've got quite a lot of holiday clubs. There's an awful outgoing for holiday clubs because, as we know, the children are being fed at school. That depends how well they're fed at school. That's another story. But they miss that during the 6 weeks holidays. So there's a massive, massive thing for us to be going in and doing these cookery clubs so they get something to eat. So that's just a little bit about what I've been doing and how diverse it is. It isn't just about primary schools. We've been secondary schools, the hospital schools, farm schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashley and Helena. So, on to sustainability, and in keeping with today's theme, we remain proud of our sustainability philosophy, which we hope you are all using in your kitchens, your business, and with your staff. This document is about privilege of membership and a huge tool to help all of us along our journey to being more sustainable. This, alongside the online hub, should answer a lot of questions and concerns you may have about best practice and how to do better. We recently ran a sustainability trip to 7&Y Smokery for a tour of their impressive facilities, a tasting session and lunch, with the chance to take part in the only Elva release happening this year. We are planning further sustainability trips in the future, so please look out for these via email. And I will just drop in, it might be lovely to get a quote about the meat there today and get that into the sustainability. It's always good, I feel, to get a very balanced view. There's so much about veganism and everything. You know, my belief is I'm a meat man, and that's the way it's going to stay. But, you know, I do believe everybody should have a fair say, and the soil and the peat, as you're saying, it's so important in how we actually move forward. And there are insects that die whilst collecting vegan food. So I just thought these were slow, very slow. I'm trying to put a bit of humour in, I'll never do it again. Okay. Our guest speaker today is friend James Robson from Fab. Please join me in welcoming him, and we look forward to learning about opening up a pop-up, developing it into a restaurant with a young kitchen team led by a former Annual Award of Excellence winner, Jack Croft, during the COVID pandemic. Over to you, James.
So look, where do we start? Jack Croft, my business partner. He's probably with me because of this Culinary Arts Society. He's incredibly talented. He learns a lot of what he's got from this room. But if you mention the word sustainability to him, it's almost like they cringe. I can't explain it. I'm 50 next year. My business partners are half my age. But they find whoever discusses sustainability doesn't really understand it. The generation I'm working with, they just are sustainable, we find. They've worked out their fashion went wrong. That's changing a little bit. But I think the main word we want to use is balance. We talk about meat. Look, I'm with you. I love meat. But we eat too much. We farmed it too much. You know, I'm not saying veg is the way, but I'd say it's probably less fish, a little bit of meat, a little bit of veg is probably the way. We've got to value veg. You know, too many times the vegetarian dish was the cheapest dish. That's just not the way it should be. And too many times the meat dish was too cheap. We've got to find a way of valuing our products, getting it out there evenly, and educating our customer. And I think that's what we do at Fallow. We say we're half plant-based, just about. We value meat like anything. We don't talk about cuts. We don't have to. We only buy a whole animal. We've never really bought a rib beef, to my knowledge. We've never really bought a fillet of fish. We've never had anything pre-packaged. It's just how we are. And I think having that ethos and getting that across, mainly digitally, is why we're so lucky. The reality is, we shouldn't be open. We opened 10 days before the first lockdown. Jack and Will, one had done 5 years of dinner, one had 4 years, I think. They left their job, they set up their dream restaurant. We were shut 10 days later. No furlough, fell between the gap. No grant, fell between the gap. We had a lot of friends, we had a lot of industry love. Ray helped us out quite a bit, what we said. Thank you, Ray. But every time we reopened, one, we had no rules. We weren't a big company, so we could open quite quickly rather than worrying about things. And two, we just created this little machine. And this machine was about, I'm trying to understand how to say it, but it was just about being real and not discussing it and actually doing it. Originally, we were no cellophane, no blue roll. That changed eventually. We now have a little bit of blue roll and a little bit of cellophane, but we don't have a lot. You know, I remember my old businesses, you know, the blue roll would fill this room that we used in a year. You know, the blue roll that we use now, probably just about fill this counter. And that's what we're about. We just move forward, we change with times, and we get on with stuff. Now, I've kind of listened to the chatter around this room, and it's all about staff, utilities, how hard it is. The reality is, it's going to get harder, it's going to get worse, and we've got a choice. We either get on with it, work a bit better at it, or we might as well just shut, because it's not changing. Too many people have undervalued our industry for too long. The one thing that happened during lockdown was too many people left our industry. Why did they leave it? Because we've undervalued it, undercharged it, and underpaid it for way, way too long. And that's what we've got to change. And I think we are. So, I don't know whether that was upbeat or not, but what I can tell you is for a restaurant that opened 10 days before the lockdown, which shouldn't be here, we've got the most fantastic, vibrant business. We're employing an extra 10 staff a month. We're only losing 1 or 2. It's getting busier, it's getting better, and it's getting more exciting each day. And for that reason, I love this industry, and that's probably the best way I can describe it. Thanks very much, James.
At this point, we talked about maybe doing a very short sort of Q&A.
Yeah, sure.
Any questions? People have got some questions that would be great to hear.
Anyone got any questions?
We spoke to a few people already.
What? Chris?
Amazing. You know, I've watched everything you've done, James, and the teams, and proud to work with one of the dads from my day grades. And it doesn't surprise me. But we are, I think, it was an upbeat message, because there is a way through people. We were all talking here about living through 3, 4, 5 recessions, if you can count the credit crunch, 9/11, 7/11. And people always want to go out, but it is, you're absolutely right. You know, we've never valued it. We've all worked 80, 90 hours of paid 40. But it's come to roost on our shift, and we've got to find a way to move forward with that. How do you see this next year? Because Jeff and I, at a recent board meeting, we said, is there anything wrong to wrap a business in cotton wool and say it's not going to make the profits it did before, but after, how do we come out of that, and what things do we need to do going forward?
I think there needs to be less businesses that make you more profit, if I'm being honest. Wrapping in cotton wool, I think that's how we feel it is. You know, I go back to 190 Queensgate Gore Hotel days, you know, and lived, breathed, work, 70, 80 hours. I'm drunk about 45 of them, if I'm being honest. But, you know, we just worked. But the thing is about the generation below, I think the owners are different, I've got to be honest. There's a big gap between how the owners work now and how your teams work. The owners in our industry, if you're a genius, you're going to work 40, 45 hours. But in reality, the owners are still doing your 60, 70, 80 hours. But the teams below us, they just cannot do it. They're wired differently. They're probably smarter than us, that they value quality of life over money, but then the state sponsors them a lot more than they used to. But that doesn't mean they're wrong. You know, I don't think there's any chef out there now that can work over 50 hours in that generation without imploding. And I'd say front of house is slightly less than that. So I think we touched on it earlier, didn't we? But I think front of house you need to get to somewhere, in an ideal world, to 42 hours, maximum 46, 48. And I feel chefs are a slightly different creature, but they're really kind of 46 to 52 hours. Over that, with the way they're wired with these, they can't really do more. And I think we've got to adapt our business models that's how we pay them. And do you know what, if the customer doesn't like it, well, go cook it at home, because we've got to charge more for it, because otherwise we won't have teams left. We've seen how many left this industry during the lockdown. And I've got to be honest, don't blame them. You know, it was too hard for too long.
We're going to end up like Paris.
Pardon?
We're going to end up like Paris.
Yeah.
It's going to be so expensive to eat out, without doubt.
Yeah, but eating out, we've got used to eating out 4 or 5 times a week. Maybe it needs to be more of a treat. Maybe there needs to be less restaurants, but when you go out, you appreciate
Tuesdays, lunch and dinner.
you know.
It's mad, right?
Well, we still open 7 lunches and 7 dinners. But our chefs at the moment, and look, we're no saints. Our chefs, I believe, are working somewhere between 50 and 56 at the moment, but they were about 52 to 60, and our aim is to generally bring them down to 50.
Be careful because it's going to switch. I'm interviewing people week in, week out. They will not do more than 45 hours a week. Their expectations for chef de partie are 32,000 plus. And that's their expectations. And they go, don't like you, we'll go there.
But that's what we
And
hear.
then we start monopoly on
And then
the industry, because if you give it, I give it, I give it, you give
I
it.
can hear where you're going.
Fair enough.
We're not bidding up the market here. We're paying people what they're worth.
Oh.
We paid too little for too long. We've got to charge
Yeah, but
more for the dish.
That's right. That's right. You can't go from 0 to hero. You know, these
Well,
guys got a
okay,
business.
so
They
that-
can't go from there
okay,
to
look,
there overnight.
I get where
It's
you
fine.
are, but the reality is the pendulum has been so far this way for so long that now the generation has swung it this far and we've got to bring it back slowly. But they're right to have swung it that far. I know we don't want to hear it, you know, but the reality is we've underpaid our industry for way too long. And now they're shoving it back in our face.
Wait for the fact we're not producing the amount of apprentices we used to produce.
Well, I know that.
Wait for another 5 years, what we do.
To go back to my
we're
point,
done.
we need to have less restaurants doing a good job charging for it and customers appreciating it more. I mean, the customer is always right. There's no doubt about it. If we don't have that motto, it all starts with the customer. But they've had too much choice for too long. Basically drunk on cheap labour. And that cheap labour is not coming back. It's that simple.
I think you're absolutely right. I had the experience of my lifetime on a weekend. Spent Saturday at our pub, and we're paying these people, we're training them, and everything like that. You come back from all right, and then yesterday, I got my mum over and she wants to go to a pub. I had 2 courses at a pub, and 4 of us paid £180. I had 2 courses, and I was there for 4 hours. And honestly, the worst Sunday of my life. And I thought, those poor kids that are working there, they're not being paid, they're not being trained. I don't even want to go out again. And I thought, I would have paid double that and not have that experience. I think you just got to pay. As long as your product's right, you've got to charge for it, make sure you've got a solid business. People will flock to you, they will, because it's good. Because everywhere else is so bad right now. And it is a positive. I think if you do all of those things and you pay, and you treat people fairly, you've still got to push them.
We should be proud of what we do.
I think
And
so.
we should pay
It's got to
people
be
in a
good.
proud
It's got
way.
to be good.
And I know it's not easy.
Yeah. There's so
But
many
that's-
others that are bad out there that ultimately, they will close.
And the minimum that we talk about, we're talking about, if you go back pre-pandemic, we were paying people in London 22 to 26 grand a year. You can't get the tube for 22 to 26 grand a year. They've got to be 30 plus, and even then they haven't got a great quality of life. So it's just, it has been of our own making, even though we haven't done it deliberately. The supermarkets have got its sus, they go in robots. It's that simple. Our industry will never be robots, it will be people. But those people are going to cost a lot more. And that's a fact.
That's for sure. It's an interesting conversation, and all of these points are very valid. I think myself, I've been in the industry for 47 years. And one of the things that we forget is we have talked, and in the academy alone, for 35 years, about working hours, working conditions that are never really changed. They haven't really changed. We've talked it, we've lifted things, it's gone back down. We've struggled on and pushed, it's gone back. Generally speaking, I know what my staff work. I'm not going to say I know it's too much. It's more than what these guys are saying. And I say to myself all the time, I say, I'm the one that's got it wrong. I know the business plan has to change. Without the business plan changing, we've got no hope. It won't change overnight, but I do believe businesses will change, but like everything, it does take a little bit more time. I think the only process that's going to speed it up any is we go into recession and there's businesses lost, and then people need jobs again, but where does that bring us? It just brings us back to the same spot, so you're not reducing reality. But I know that the young people of today do not want, are not capable of working with the mentality the way that we have worked and we have operated.
A talented front of house is as good as an actor. A chef is as good as a scientist. Yet we've never paid ourselves to that level. And that's what we've got to do. Because the rest is all going, sponsored by the state to robotic. And this isn't some kind of theory. It's just the truth. The generation now is not going to suddenly wake up and go, yeah, I want to go and have a great work ethic.
Everybody being able to make it work. And I agree, it's probably going to be less restaurants, etc. But I think that's coming quicker than we know.
It's about fun, it's about energy, it's about enjoyment. We're not handing out parking tickets. Most of us aren't doing spreadsheets every day. You can enjoy our industry. You can eat well, you can drink well, you can taste well, you can meet amazing people. That's the message we need to get out there.
The only problem is the only people that are going to get to go to these restaurants are the wealthy, right? Because the people these young people that are earning the money won't better go and eat them if they're paying £300-400 for a meal.
Do you know what? I agree with you, but if you look at our restaurant, it's in the middle of Piccadilly, our demographic is so young, and these aren't trust fund kids. So maybe they think different. They think different, they spend their money on different stuff. So actually, I'm with you. I agree with you in principle, but the facts that we're seeing, and we did close on 2,000 covers last week on a 100 cover restaurant, and the demographic was probably average age of about 25, 26, and they weren't all from Chelsea and Mayfair. Actually, this amount were from Chelsea and Mayfair because they don't even have a telephone line and they can't deal with it. They call up and make a booking. These are digitally savvy, switched on kids that, I'm sure some only come out once a month, but there's a lot of people that want to come out regularly that are young, and they value that experience.
What's your cost per head there?
We are, what am I saying actually, 57 lunch, 67 dinner.
That's not expensive, is that?
Well, that's,
you can do it at a decent price.
yeah, so that's net, just to be very clear, VAT and service charge on top of that. But I can tell you we did 2,000 covers last week. The average was 57 lunch, 67 dinner. So, with good energy, good buzz, good people. We had everyone from only Fools and Horses cast to Tom Courage to people from all over.
Any other questions?
What's your biggest selling dish?
Yeah.
Is it the cod head?
Okay. God, Jack, I do the stats and the numbers. Okay, so what I should say is the content. We've sold over 10,000 content, which from a dish that was literally cut off and thrown away at sea is brilliant. We've never bought a fillet of cod. We've got to the point now where we can't get enough cod heads. Apparently the fishermen here either use them for crab baits or they cut them off at sea and throw them away because they can't be bothered to store them and bring them back. So cod head is probably the lead sustainable dish that I'd like to discuss, and we have sold over 10,000. It's phenomenal. Mushroom parfait is a massive one for us. There's no problems with mushrooms in this country. They're getting made in basements in London. We've even got a mushroom. Yeah, we've got a mushroom farm in our roof above one of our fridges that is churning out mushrooms. That's a great one. What else we've got? Our sausages. We've put sausage on the menu that we make ourselves, which fundamentally is all the offcuts from everything from our pork, our lamb, our beef. That's a huge seller because just everyone buys one. And then you get onto your kind of meat and plant debate. Our corn ribs are probably our biggest selling dish. Now, on the businessman side, they've got their own momentum, they've gone Insta famous. Now the problem is with corn, is we can only get them from Europe, and we try to stick to Europe and our country as a rule. Can't do it on all the spirits, can't do it with all the food, but we'll buy British wherever we can, we'll buy Europe. We don't have a wine on our wine list outside of Europe, for example. But corn, half the time it comes from Zimbabwe. You know, we all know it, so that for a sustainable restaurant, and not to hell out the answer of plant-based, because it's being shipped around the world. But then you look at other reasons. If you looked at the corn industry in Zimbabwe and what happened to the population, if they weren't selling corn all around the world, you then get the avocado debate, you know. Is avocado, and we're hoping to open breakfast in the next month to 3 months, presuming we can find the team. And we've decided not to go avocado. But in answer to your question, corn first, content, mushroom pathways, the beef ribs are great.
Yeah.
They go
I
well.
So I had a restaurant called Rib Room,
Okay.
and your beef ribs took me back to working there. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, we do these little kind of tough-let things. They sell very well. We've got quite a big broad menu, and everything sells very well. But if you go back to fundamentally what's Insta famous and what people ask for, content is probably number one, but not the number one seller. Mushroom parfait, cool ribs, and the sausage is catching up pretty quickly. The Guinness soft serve did pretty well too.
Thank you.
Any more? Okay then. Thanks very much indeed, James. I hope that's got you thinking. But I believe that we have to really try to manage this, which will be suitable for us as well as the business. It's so important to get the right balance, but it's time to act, that's for sure. Because if we don't, it's only going to go down the pan, and you're not actually going to grow the way that we actually think we are. It's just businesses are going to go, and it's just going to carry on being the same kind of work. And everybody knows that places that are working very, very long hours. And generally, and I say this generally, somebody tells you, oh, well, my guys are working 45 or 50, it's usually 60 to 65. You know, it's tough. And we've got to change that. And I talk to the chefs here now. The only people that are going to do it in a kitchen is the chefs. It's not the manager. It's not the GM or the directors. It's us that have actually got to change.
John, don't you think it's the next generation who've got to change it? I mean, I don't want to consider ourselves
I don't think they're going to change.
dinosaurish, but...
They've changed already, it won't work.
I agree.
Generally, it's a goal. Unless
Well,
you're
they are doing 40-year-olds.
at the 2-3 Michelin level, but there are another 3 who are so passionate they'll do whatever we say. They've changed. They're not coming to work for you. Or they're coming in, clocking in,
And doing nothing.
doing nothing.
But
It's
then,
a gimme generation.
going back to what you were saying, is it not then the case where the fast food, formulated restaurants are going to expand like crazy?
They made it.
The top end will always survive, and the stuff in the middle is
Well,
going
of
to
course.
suffer like
The top end will survive, but
Always,
it's going to cost a lot more.
those people will always be able to have that money.
I am actually giving some of the dishes away. If I'm telling you that I've got dishes on it 50%, and they are not cheap. They're very, very expensive dishes. You know, my Augustine dish is making 50% at best. Don't want to take it off. The hotel says no, we'll keep with it. But that's the kind of scenario that you've got, and we are not cheap.
No.
Who was that?
I have changed the old norms. A lot of the old norm, so we had 30% food, 30% labour on labour's 40 now. But we just have to look at our business and try and work with suppliers. What can we work with, what can we? I've said this for decades, we need to eat better but less. You know, quantities of weight, proteins that we put on the plate. And we do have to radically change because we need to attract people. There's still great kids out there, still amazing people coming out, but they'll go to who wants, who's going to look after them.
That's true. That's the other thing. People looking after them and nurturing them. I know my son, he's got nothing to do with this industry, works in a totally different industry. He likes to play pretty cool. He likes to get himself about. He likes to have a good time. He likes to get out and have a drink. He likes to have lots of holidays. And he doesn't want to work too hard. No, I'm being very serious. But you know the funny thing? When I said, where do you get that shit from? You. I've seen what you did. So, you know, it is something that you've got to listen to, and they're the ones that are going to drive this. What we've got to do is actually not be dinosaurs and try and help it on and make it work. And I just think it's so important. And jumping back to the meat, Lucy, I think that there's something quite important. You tickled me, because I'm naughty at some things. We try hard to be sustainable in some ways, but I know in some of the other ways we're quite poor. I was thinking where you're saying, you know, look at a whole carcass and trying to pick certain things out. And because we are looking for prime cuts, I'm not even going to tell you what the cut is, but it's a very, very particular cut. And you only want the best part of it, and the butcher's got a problem getting rid of the head, and they've got rid of the problem getting rid of this. And these are super prime cuts, but because we're only wanting specific parts of it, it's putting pressure in a different way. And that happens throughout different meats. You know, we, in our kind of establishment, because of the way that we operate, if we were to try and buy carcasses, we would be changing too much work. And it's getting that balance right. And I know that we're doing some things incorrectly for what we should be. But it's set out a style, and they think that's the way.
Well, John, I wouldn't say you're necessarily doing it wrong. You know, we take a view from broad pound base, and there's certain restaurants will always want that. You charge the prices and everything else. And Dad always brought us up, didn't he, Simon? Simon's not a brother, feels like a doctor brother. He's worked for us for over 17 years. The whole carcass, there's no logical reason to a butcher why the fillet should cost more than the chop. No reason to it. If you're buying whole, you know this, if you're buying whole, you've got to sell the whole lot.
Yeah.
But it's about education from grassroots up to teach people that, you know, run your pubs and put something really exciting and different on, like your cross heads.
But it's also about
And
using
balance.
the secondary cuts.
Oh, sure.
With your primary cuts.
Yeah.
For instance, you know, I'm trying to teach my students at the moment that if you put in 60 grams of a prime cut, then 30 grams or 40 grams of a secondary cut with it, you're always going to make more money.
There are a few of us in this room that can still remember when Gray's Park was around.
But you remember Claridge's? We used to buy the whole carcasses, didn't we? And then we fall downstairs. We break it all down, you know, we did that much.
But, you know, it was commonplace in an English home to have a stuffed braised carcass. You know, people used to actually have that, didn't they, Mr. Turner?
It was very interesting when we did the thing with Simon a couple of weeks ago. That we just put these skewers out, and everybody ate them, and they all said, "Oh, that's fantastic! Oh, that's really nice." And then when Simon said, "Have you ever bought a heart?" and they all went, "No," and he just said, "Well, that's what you've been eating for us." And they went, "Wow! You know, if it's done properly."
So how do we get that back?
I think
Is it down to the chefs, the butchers?
Yeah.
Yes,
By stealth. I think sometimes. It works.
I think it has to come back to how it's worded. If we put parts on the menu, people are not going to have it. It needs to be worded in such a way. And if we go back to many years ago, we used to sell a lot more pieces of whole, and the hotel would have a budget. And they would deal with all the other cuts and the other parts. Now it's quite...
I mean, most restaurants are now serving the cheaper cuts, much more than they used to.
Unfashionable cuts, but there's a lot of... I mean, we're getting order for 100 rumps of that. That leaves another 9.
It goes through the process, doesn't it? It needs a couple of decent chefs with something on the menu, and a lot of young people say, "Oh, I'm not using that. Oh, I have to use that."
Yeah.
And that's how it actually. The people that I sell loads, and when I tell you I sell lots, I mean a lot of sweetbreads. You don't see a lot of sweetbreads around.
We've got some beef sweetbreads.
Okay. So, I'm going to actually swiftly get the date and venue of the next meeting, which will be on the 5th of September, and it will be at Lucianne. Something like that. Okay, then I'm sure the conversation will carry on a little bit longer, but, you know, bear with it and understand, try to understand it and see what you can implement yourself and have discussions with the academy. We're not trying to actually cause a revolution here. It's about how we sustain ourselves as a set of chefs and front of house, obviously, to really take this industry forward. I think it's so important, and it's a very particular time, because if we don't do it, somebody else is, but you'll not like the result. So, best of
I think
luck.
what would be interesting, John, if you were to introduce 2 or 3 30-year-old chefs to us, for them to give their perspective to this audience as to their expectation of the industry, their expectation of salary, and what they're going to be doing in 20 years from now, as we're all going to
I think it can be quite incredible. If you want, I'll bring my 2 sous chefs, who are quite exceptional guys. They're very, very exceptional, and they put me straight.
The only problem with this program is that they're unique.
No.
They're unique.
They are the ones that actually come to me and say, "Hang on a minute, chef." They won't do that.
No, I know, but they're part of the
But they're the ones who know. They're telling me.
No, I get that. But in answer to an open forum question, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. They're exceptional guys. What I'm saying is, from my background, everybody else around the
Bring them in.
just a ambiguous 30-year-old chef.
I'll be very happy to.
It's a little bit more different to something that's so special as the Ritz. I'm not saying that they're really bad, but it's a bit more open.
I mean, that's the problem, John.
What I was trying to say is, they might be exceptional. They might be leaders of the industry, but they know there's a massive problem.
Off the conversation today, you need to get someone for young people.
Yeah,
You
sure.
need to get someone for a modular sort of group of restaurants that has been sold. So you've
I
got
don't
someone
disagree.
to mentor both sides of the story.
Let's have a little look at this one next one.
It gives a better we're in a crisis. We're in a shocking crisis. That's not fact. Really, it's always an effort to get. It's always an effort to get. It's always an effort to get people together. We're all skilled to do. The top guys in the West End, and I was talking to Corbyn, Kings, these guys. They were meeting every 6 weeks. I got invited to their think tanks. They sat down with young people, like you say, and they're saying they're not going to do that. This is what we need to be doing. But shouldn't the academy be doing something more regular, where we can meet, share around the table? Actually, I see David Doricott here today. Years ago, they used to meet up a lot regularly. The old head chefs used to get together for their French tea and just talk about the problems they had. I just think that plenaries are amazing, but the energy that they generate.
The academy
We're in a crisis. We're in a bad way. I think we've got so many brains so much experience. Could we not meet more often, informal? We can meet with us, we can meet with others. And we just saying on the table, could we not invite some of our younger graduates to come and look at that thinking process while we're sitting there, looking at problem solving? Because there is a way out of it, for sure. And James has sparked this now, but he's absolutely right. For Jeff and I, we're the same age, John. You know, it's 46, 47 years in industry. We've suddenly got to change. The pandemic's propelled us 10 years in the future. 10 years in the future. I hope that you and me will be sitting there talking about golf, but we're not, and we're in it right now.
It's the biggest thing we've ever done in history.
But we're bright enough to work our way out of this. I think it would be great if there was a vehicle, a think tank, every 6 weeks where we could just meet together. I know our time's so short.
Well, shall I follow up on
There you
that?
go.
Yeah.
There's a
To an
man.
extent, we are engaging more with the online network. It's coming together. September, October time will be out, but it's we are anyone.
Explain a little bit there.
I've probably spoken a bit about it before at some of the other meetings, but what we're trying to do is to draw together people that share the ethos, young people that share the academy's ethos, the values and everything from sustainability to the apprenticeship and so on, to get all of the apprentices that go through our system, anyone who's achieved at the Annual Awards of Excellence, for example, those are the key people going forward who understand what the academy is about and share the values. So the idea is to get those people and to give them some events, give them some general academy events, give them some tickets here and there, to get them involved and have a sort of two-way flow of information. They can look at what some of the great chefs and front of house people have achieved. They can get a bit of insight outside their usual chain of command, so they're not sort of constrained in a way. They can ask questions a bit. I think for the academicians and members, they'll be able to get a bit of insight into what goes on and hopefully to get that sort of flow of information going. Now, it'll take a bit of time to develop a bit of momentum, but what we've started off as is looking 5 years back, so it is a sort of a body of possible members of sort of 300 to 500 we can sort of try and get in. And then we'll have that line of communication open, I'm hoping. So it's not an immediate solution, but I think it's a bit of an outreach. It's a bit of an outreach, and everywhere I've been to see the colleges, so on, there's been a lot of enthusiasm for it. I think it'll be a good thing, and it'll start to achieve some of what we're talking about.
I think if we brought some of those people from the alumni, and maybe just once you send one of your staff to a little one-off seminar to start the ball rolling to see where we can actually make this go. But it's all in the same line as sustainability. It's about how we actually manage ourselves, how
Can I suggest something?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Okay, so people from your youngsters you're talking about that have the awards, they'll have a lot of respect for this room. When they come in, they'll almost bow down a little bit when they come down. Why don't the next meeting, rather than all you lot coming, send someone else from your business and see what comes out of it? Because you need to crack this. This is the top ceiling, and this is quite intimidating for youngsters. Well, it's either intimidating or quite frankly boring. You know, why don't all of you decide not to come to one meeting, but make sure you send someone from can't have been in your business for more than 10 years, and that's bright and young, and they'll talk openly amongst themselves. Just video it, see what it comes out.
Yeah.
Just an idea. I know that's really kind of.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if you bring 5 youngsters into this room, it's intimidating is the wrong word. They won't be intimidated. They won't talk.
We're not necessarily looking to this sort of event.
not to this
For
kind of scenario.
example, at 7Y the other day, we brought a couple of apprentices to it. We're not talking about completely stacking every event with apprentices. So we're starting off by just bringing them in, putting a few here and there to start things going. But then obviously they'll.
But I think you do need to stack them in. I think you need to stack them in or take a step back and listen to what they're saying. That's my point.
That's pretty much what Chris said. We're in crisis. And the most experience is around the table. More than anything you bring in, it's around the table. We don't communicate that well until today. We've had more conversations today about staffing than I've had in months. because I've been to the Plenary or whatever.
Get best practice.
It's like what we know the solutions are. Oh, have you thought about that? Have you thought about that? We talked over there about bringing people in from India. We talked about this. All of a sudden, in one conversation over lunch, the generation's been 100% because we interacted with the experiences. That doesn't bring other people from outside. That's brilliant too. But what's fundamental now? We're in shit.
But isn't that what this
More
is
than
for?
we've ever been.
Isn't what this is
ever.
always been for? It's a question of whether it's always achieved.
But also,
We've done it.
But we're not in a ship, we're in change. And the good thing is it's not all about big companies anymore. You know, there's opportunity and youth can come through and energy can come through. Look at Fallow. Fallow had no rent deposit, nothing, and it's got 4,000 square foot in the middle of central London. That wouldn't have happened if we weren't in the shit as such. The good thing about being in the shit is it creates opportunity. And our industry is brilliant at coming up from fires and all of this. And I'm sure if you go around this room, most people did some of their best deals in recession. You know, and that's my point. There's an argument that this is the best time ever to be in our industry. Now get that message out there. That will excite. But yeah, we're in the ship.
But we're not.
Okay then.
No, I'll save it for the chips. Cheers.
Okay. But we'll definitely follow that up. And I like the idea, James, about actually bringing a load of staff away from us. Because the only way, you've got to have both sides. But you know, the thing is, the Academy was born from the Chef 9 Club. And all it was a group of chefs getting together and discussing their problems. And it was the same problem we're talking about now. So,
I can think, John, I have one in mind. He doesn't work for us anymore. He's at the Royal Academy, stayed with us 3 years, went to another starred restaurant, and I can just see he's taking a job where the hours are good now, still good standard. But then I watch him on Instagram, he's at this festival, he's at that festival, that's terrific, one of our best cooks. And he still loves it, and he still comes to dine with us. But I think what you're talking about, James, someone like him, he's got this, definitely got a world outside of cooking. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Actually, that's completely normal for a human being, isn't it? To have work, and then to have some interest outside of work. We've grown up not having that. That's completely normal. We're the unnormal ones, but I think it is normal. And so I think it's someone like that, technically terrific, great talent, still wants to do lovely work, but he's chosen a job, but he's still probably going to do, he's not mincing around, you know, he's probably still going to do 48 hours, something like that, 50 hours, but he's not going to do 80 hours, he's not going to do that. You know, and is that wrong? I think that's absolutely right. But 1,000,000% right. Should he be paid every hour he works? Absolutely. If he does more, he should be. But he's got a life, and I look at it and I think, spot on. You know, the boy who's just trying to have a nice girlfriend, trying to go to things, trying to have outside interests, but he's 1,000,000% committed when he goes to work. And I think that's what we all want. We don't want 60 hours, but we do want a nice 48 hours of commitment. And I think that's the danger we all feel. Someone's going to see work as a bit of a pain. You know, not be committed when they are there. That's all we want, is 48 hours of commitment, and then go and enjoy yourself. But I think that is normal. And we've been brought up in an abnormal world where your life is cooking, and that's not really, or healthy. It's not healthy. So.
Respect Jeff's productivity is so much better than anyone who's only doing 14 hours.
you know, when my first boss in Royal Garden was Remy Fougere, and he never worked on ours, and he never worked his staff on ours. And one day I had a conversation with him, and he said, after 10 hours, your body actually just goes downhill, and you're totally unproductive, so why the hell make people work? But their system was set out, and we all know what happens with food. The moment that you actually try and do something else, you put more pressure, you build more hours, and it's down to us to change. You know, food is about execution, and we've got to definitely do something.
Changing like your business model, why was it, and I'm talking pre-pandemic, years and years ago, why was it the Ivy and the Capri, some of the busiest, most successful restaurants? My friends were leaving starred restaurants, going to work there and saying, I'm not working 10 shifts, I'm working 6 shifts.
Yeah,
That's why
I
I
think,
did that 25 years ago.
where does it start though? It also starts with the style of food
Yeah.
and the simplicity of finishing, what you actually put into the dish. And that was one of the focuses in those places. And when you have that, of course, you know, you've got a fixed methodology of work and you have an amount of time that works. The moment that you actually start adding things, what happens? Everybody just seems to add and add and add, and it just causes labour.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to leave it on that. I think there's a lot of good discussion today, and we will definitely pick up on the whole sustainability element and the staffing element and bringing some youngsters forward. So thanks very much. I've totally enjoyed it, and hope you all of us.